Every day has the potential to be a great day for an archaeologist. They never know what they might find when they go digging around into the past. And sometimes they still might know what they've found even after they've discovered it. Archaeological discoveries have the potential to be awe-inspiring, with each one capable of telling us more about human history. Let's look at some of those incredible discoveries now. The history of human settlement on the Falkland Islands is controversial. It's long been believed that nobody lived here before the first European settlers arrived, and today the islands are owned by the British. The Argentinians have never agreed with the concept of British ownership and believe the islands should be theirs. In July 2021, we got a little closer to finding out who the first ever inhabitants of the island were. A team from the USA's University of Maine spent a lot of time searching the islands for signs of prehistoric human activity during 2021, and they found what they were looking for in the charcoal record of New Island. Scientific analysis of the charcoal shows there was a spike in fire activity 2,000 years ago, and then another during the 15th century. The third spike in the 18th century coincides with the arrival of Europeans. The causes of the previous two spikes are unknown, but are highly likely to have been caused by humans. The idea of human residency is further supported by the discovery of a stone projectile point typical of the kind used by Native Americans around 1,000 years ago. The islands might have been empty by the 18th century, but they hadn't always been that way. Yavna in Israel seems to have been a wine drinker's paradise 1,500 years ago. We can say that with confidence because archaeologists discovered an enormous winemaking facility there in October 2021, and they say it dates back to that time. Drinking wine was already a well-established human practice back then. Nobody's 100% sure when we first started drinking wine, but it's been at least 4,000 years. At the scene of the discovery, archaeologists found 5 wine presses, kilns for making clay vessels to store the wine in, and storage warehouses to put the clay vessels in. A facility of this size would have been capable of producing an enormous 2 million liters of wine each year. That would make this one of the biggest wine-producing regions in the world during the Byzantine era, and the source of much of the white wine that was shipped to Turkey, Greece, Egypt, and southern Italy. There was more to drinking wine than just having a good time back then. It was a matter of survival. Wine was cleaner than the water of the time, so people even fed it to their children. Finding just one tomb would be considered a good day's work for an archaeologist, so the team responsible for this next discovery must have been ecstatic. In October 2021, they found a whole 400 stone-cut chamber tombs hidden in a canyon wall close to the ancient city of Bloundos, Turkey. The tombs were undisturbed prior to the archaeologists finding them, and still feature their original wall paintings and grave goods. All of the tombs were made at roughly the same time 1,800 years ago. After opening some of the sarcophagi, the team found that many of them contained more than one occupant. That suggests that these were family tombs, used repeatedly over several generations. The excavation project at the site has been ongoing since 2018. Prior to the discovery of the tombs, the archaeologists found aqueducts, a basilica, public baths, a theater, a gymnasium, and 2 temples. They've also found other tombs in the area, but all of their previous tomb discoveries had been broken into during times of antiquity. That might even have prompted the partial hiding of this set of tombs within the canyon wall. Excavations at Pompeii began in 1738 and are still ongoing today. It seems we'll never run out of fascinating things to find there. The most recent high-profile discovery is this ceremonial chariot, which turned up at the site of a villa on the outskirts of the ancient site. The carriage is so well preserved that its original satyr, nymph, and cupid decorations are still clearly visible. Like everything else at Pompeii, The Chariot has effectively been frozen in time since the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in the year 79. Whoever rode in this chariot traveled in comfort and style. They had armrests and backrests in their seat atop 4 iron wheels. Chariots have been found in Pompeii before, but it's rare to find one that's so beautiful and so completely intact. The surrounding walls and ceilings collapsed as a result of the destruction caused by the volcano, but the chariot remained standing. The elaborate nature of the vehicle means it's unlikely to have been used for day-to-day transportation. It's far more likely that it was used for special occasions like weddings and festivals. Archaeologists used to have to rely on their eyes and their instincts when digging for discoveries, but now they have a whole range of amazing technology at their disposal. That technology includes LiDAR remote sensing equipment that can reveal things that can't be seen with the naked eye. It was put to good use in Tikal, Guatemala in September 2021, when it revealed the presence of a large citadel built by the Maya. The citadel is hidden inside mounds that were once thought to be natural hills, but now appear to have been created artificially to hide the presence of the citadel and the buildings that once surrounded it. The buildings are roughly 1,800 years old, and the citadel looks more than a little familiar. As several archaeologists have noted, it's a near-carbon copy of the famous citadel of Teotihuacan, albeit built to a smaller scale. This suggests a greater degree of cultural exchange between the people of these ancient places than we once imagined. The big question, of course, is why the citadel was buried. Unfortunately, we might never get an answer to that. We've already looked at a site used by ancient wine drinkers, so now let's go further back in time and look at a site used by ancient beer drinkers. Archaeologists believe that this pottery, found in August 2021 in southern China, contains evidence of people drinking beer in the area 9,000 years ago. The pottery was found on a platform mound in the middle of an artificial ditch in Chaotu in China's Zhejiang province. They also found 2 human skeletons at the site, which makes them think that the consumption of beer was related to a funeral rite. That doesn't mean that beer drinking was reserved specifically for such occasions, though. It might have gone on all the time. Abstract designs are still visible on the fragmented remains of the pottery, but the meaning of the designs is unknown. Aside from being among the earliest examples of beer drinking, these containers are also thought to be the oldest examples of painted pottery in the world. Signs of the presence of beer were detected in microbial and microbotanical bacteria on the surface of the pottery. What can you tell about an ancient culture by looking at their tools? In the case of the tiny tools of the ancient Indonesians, the answer to that question is quite a lot. These stone and bone artifacts are known as point tools and were developed on the island of Sulawesi by the Toalian people. Based on what we think we know about them, they first appeared on the island as hunter-gatherers roughly 8,000 years ago. The tools they made are unlike any other tools developed elsewhere in Indonesia, or in fact, the rest of the world. Just under 1,800 examples of the tools have been identified and collected by archaeologists so far, with more likely to be found in the future. It's likely that they were used for hunting fish, although a variant of the tools known as Maros points might have been mounted on shafts and used as arrowheads. It was once thought that the Toalians were connected to the Aborigines of Australia, but such is the uniqueness of their tools that we now believe them to be a separate culture. Having concluded that the Toalians didn't come from Australia, the experts now have to come up with a new theory about their origins. That might take a while. Most woven baskets wouldn't survive for 10,500 years. But then most woven baskets aren't the one that was found deep inside Murabat Cave, Israel in March 2021. Unsurprisingly, this is the oldest woven basket in the world. It's only survived long enough for archaeologists to find it because of the unique conditions deep inside the cave, which have kept it safe for all these years. It's in such condition that the lid was still attached when it was found, and the basket was neither warped nor bent. Archaeologists were a little bit disappointed when they removed the lid and discovered that the basket was empty, but that doesn't take anything away from the rarity of the find. To put the find in context, this basket was woven while the first occupants of the Levant were in the early stages of creating Jericho, the first organized town in the world. In all of that time, the way that baskets are woven hasn't changed at all. The only frustration here is that the cave has been searched and excavated by archaeologists many times in the past, and yet the basket was missed every time until the 2021 survey. We could and probably should have found it years ago. In March 2021, archaeologists in Poland found a large megalithic cemetery close to the village of Debiany in Świętokrzyski province. The tombs here are so unusual and so unlike any others found in the country before that the experts have been left wondering whether they've found the burial grounds of a previously unknown culture. There are dozens of tombs at the site, all of which appear to be around 5,500 years old. It's likely that the site would never have been noticed were it not for modern satellite imaging technology. Archaeologists identified the possibility of there being something beneath the fields of the region in images taken in 2019 and started excavating the site in late 2020. It's the fact that the tombs are lined with wooden poles rather than stone that makes this burial site stand out as different, along with the elongated trapezoid shape of the burial mound and the long ditches that surround it. Sadly, finding out more about the culture that created the tombs might be difficult. The graves were robbed a very long time ago, and the bodies and grave goods were taken. This odd-looking clay figurine was found inside a mass grave in Siberia in October 2020. Archaeologists have been trying to work out what to make of it ever since. The somewhat macabre figurine is about 5,000 years old and comes with what appears to be facial tattoos and a tiny mask made of bone. Archaeologists found it on the shoulder of a woman buried inside the grave. Whether the placement of the artifact in this specific position is significant or not is unknown. Nothing like this has ever been found before in Siberia. The history of the region is reasonably well understood. This was once home to the Odinov culture, but the design of the figurine isn't consistent with their art. To make things even stranger, the Odinov people were East Asian in appearance. The features on the face of this figurine appear to be Caucasian. The torso of the figurine features a groove, into which was set a small bronze plate and an unknown organic substance. The mask, made of a horse's vertebra, is a representation of a bear's muzzle. Perhaps we don't know the Odinov culture as well as we thought we did. Is this the oldest child's toy in Europe? Perhaps so. It's a stork made of bronze and silver, and comes with an articulated head that can tilt to give the impression that the stork is drinking water. It's believed to be a product of the Thracian culture and was found in Bulgaria's Rhodope Mountains in May 2015. Archaeologists believe it to be around 3,500 years old. That dates it to the Late Bronze Age. Aside from its unusual tripod-like shape, the most striking thing about the stork is its eyes, which are made from a semi-precious gemstone called carnelian, which is native to the region. It's been labeled as a toy because of its size and the fact it was seemingly designed to be played with, but experts can't totally rule out the idea that it might have had another purpose. There was no written language in this part of the world 3,500 years ago, so everything we know about the Thracians is based on our interpretation of the things they left behind, rather than any records they created. The artifact is now on display inside a local museum. People have been living on Scotland's Orkney Islands for thousands of years, and we understand very little about the earliest inhabitants of the islands. In September 2020, It came as a total surprise to archaeologists to find out that an ancient culture created these burial mounds at a site called Meishoe, within which people were laid to rest upside down. The mound consists of a main chamber and several side chambers, with all of the side chambers stylistically inverted when compared to the main chamber. The suggestion is that they symbolically represented the entry of the dead to the netherworld, and implies that these people believed that the afterlife could be found beneath the ground, rather than in the heavens. Archaeologists at the site have described the chambers as houses for the dead, by which they mean they're designed like the standard homes of the time, but turned on their heads. It's proving to be very difficult to date the mound, but the chambers could have been created as long ago as 8,000 years. Just when archaeologists think that they've seen every kind of burial tradition, another one comes along to surprise them. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!